Welcome to the Disability Podcast, the podcast where we talk to people living with disabilities. We hear about their life, learn tips, tricks, and share ideas to help each other and our listeners with new ideas to solve real-world obstacles. So let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Today I am delighted to be talking to Matthew Couchman, a geophysicist holding a degree and master's from Leeds and a PhD from Texas A&M University. We know each other from playing cricket for the Disability Surrey squad, which I'm sure we will talk a lot about during this conversation. Matthew has transverse myelitis, which I will leave him to explain. So, welcome, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. I suffer from transverse myelitis. So that's an inflammation of both sides of a section of my spinal cord. It leads to dull nerve endings and muscle weakness for me, but there are other symptoms that are associated with transverse myelitis as well. I got transverse myelitis at the age of 4. In my case, it was caused by a reaction to the chicken pox, although it can be caused from any viral infections, bacterial skin infections, or any vaccine, and it can occur at any age as well. Because of the age that I originally suffered with transverse myelitis, I don't actually have any real memory of before having a disability. So I don't really have any comparison to make to life before my disability.
Inflammation of the spine. So I always try and relate disabilities back to my own. Mine, I've got cerebral palsy, so it's all brain related. But there's some of the symptoms there that, I can relate to. How did it affect your childhood? I can say from my experience when I was a child, it didn't really affect me because no one really cared about your disability when in primary school. They're just, getting along and, trying to experience life. So my question is, was your primary schooling and to an extent your secondary schooling, did it affect you in a positive, negative way?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your experiences there, that it affects you less at primary school. It's reassuring to hear I had very much the opposite experience. But it's actually quite encouraging that, from your point of view, that kids didn't care as much. Where I found it a bit more the other way. Like I say, I don't really remember anything before the disability, so there's no real transition here from not having a disability and how things were to how it was after. But when I was very young, I remember really struggling with this around my 4th birthday. And I remember actually having my birthday party at the age of 4 at Pizza Hut, and that's sort of my youngest memory. And I remember just being incredibly ill after that, and the start of really my disability and all the struggles that came after that. So as a child, I associated pizza with disability for a very long time. Imagine as being a child and missing out on 10 plus years of pizza. So it's a terrible thing to have to go through.
That's terrible. That is terrible. All those pizza parties missed.
I know. But what came out of that is, I couldn't walk, and my parents took me to multiple doctors and physiotherapists, and the general consensus was, you'll never walk again. And that was the blanket statement from most doctors. But my parents basically wouldn't take no for an answer. It's not a case of they wouldn't have accepted it if I couldn't walk again, but they wanted someone to at least come up with a plan to try something. Why not try? I'm 4. I've got time to try and learn and see where I can get to. And thankfully, we found a physiotherapist at Fairfield Hospital in Bury who came up with a plan involving a huge amount of physiotherapy, which started off in hospital and really followed me through to the end of primary school. And they gave me a lot of support. But the first thing I had to do was learn to walk again at the age of 4 when you're already going to primary school.
So you're already trying to learn so much at that point, and then you've just learned to walk, and then you have to go back and learn it again.
But as well, one of those other things is you're the only kid in the class that can't walk. And I had splints, they're called. So these are like plastic leg supports that come up to calf height.
The AFOs.
So they make you stand out a little bit.
I had them. I think mine only came up to my knee. So mine got covered with, they only showed in the sun when I was, wearing shorts. Personally, they annoy you on, just walking about, but they also from my perspective, they also put a spotlight on you, even though they can't tell with trousers, you can't tell, but they have it. You think there's a spotlight on you because you're walking slightly different to everyone else, even though.
That's exactly how I felt. I felt like there was a spotlight on me, and I don't know, you're a few years younger than me, so maybe they thinned down a little bit by the time you had yours, but mine were really thick and chunky things, and you could see them through the trouser. Yeah, you could see that your trouser would wrap around them tightly because of they were that thick. But not just having that, which meant that was more obvious, but as you mentioned, you walk a little differently, and in my case, I rushed relearning to walk. But when you're the only child in the class that really can't walk, you learn quickly so you can get onto the same level as the kids around you. And that's left me even, to today, I walk a little differently. Most certainly, my leg sort of turned inwards. I still have that up until today. Thankfully, as I got a little bit older, the splints eventually got replaced with heel cups, which is sort of insoles into your shoe, which is more to help balance and coordination rather than do much else.
I can just explain how my splint evolution came. So I used to have those thick, chunky plastic things. Now I have ones that are they're basically, imagine a shin pad with an insole with just one piece of material connecting the shin pad to the insole. So you can't tell that anyone wears it anymore. Unfortunately, this is one thing that I don't like is from the last time I went to the hospital, the NHS still gives you the big plastic ones, which, okay, they may work, but for confidence-wise, they're not good. But luckily, the technology has gone a long way, and obviously, and I assume you're much happier with just a insole type thing than a full-on splint.
I was much happier. I now don't have anything. I've stopped using the heel cups when I was, saying, maybe 15. So now I don't have any sort of aids or anything like that to help.
No aids at all. Oof! I wish I could have no aids at all. That's the dream. You mentioned physio just quickly, because my cerebral palsy was diagnosed before, during, or after birth. So luckily, my parents put me in physio basically week 2 of my existence. I'm a big fan of physio because I can see how it works. You try and convince the doctor, you can't convince the doctors that it's worth, but they say, oh, you can't prove, you could have become like this without physio. There's no way of proving that it was physio that helped you. And I say that's a load of nonsense, but it is, they say what it is. So you said you have physio from primary school. After that, did you continue doing the physio? Because I want to know how, my experiences of physio. Yeah, I had it a lot in primary school. Then it just sort of dropped off, especially when I was 16. And luckily I had private physio on the side because I needed it. But how was your experience of physio after primary school?
Well, I think firstly, I'm just going to agree with your point on the importance of physio. It wasn't a doctor that told me I would walk again. It was a physio. And the only reason I can walk is because of physio. It's got nothing to do with doctors. They've given up on me, essentially. It's all down to the physio. So I think that plays a huge part. And I was doing physio. It varied. When I was really young, it was probably twice a week because that's all I could manage. And it went up towards 4 times, 5 times a week. And then it started to come back down again as I needed it less. You get to a point where the improvements are going to come to everyday life for me rather than through the physio. By the time I left primary school, I was having physio once a week, which was fine. And then I moved to secondary school, and that's when we drew a line under it. But it felt like a natural end. I didn't really need to have regular physio, and my physio was at primary school. I was being taken out of class to do that. So, other children in class thought I was lucky because if I was missing a lesson to go and do physio. They don't realize you have to go and do the lesson again later in the evening. You have to still learn the same things. You just have less time to do it in. Yeah, that also led to sort of some bullying and, unfortunately for me, some depression at primary school.
I mean, that's really unfortunate for you. I mean, I also had asthma when I was at primary school. So I was taken out for physio. I was taken out for when I had asthma attacks, all of these things. So, I mean, there were times when I was in like 1 day a week. You have to catch up on all this school. But luckily, I mean, I don't know why, 50-50, the people I've spoken to, they either have no problems at school or they have problems at school. I don't know why, if it's like exactly 50-50. I find it quite interesting.
Yeah, it is odd, isn't it? It's, I think I understand why there should be problems, and it's understandable in a way that the children behave that way. Kids don't know what they're saying and how hurtful things can be.
Yeah, and they're naturally curious, I think.
Well, they're naturally curious, and they will regularly just spot what's different. And that could be anything. And it doesn't mean that these kids grow up to be people who are terrible people or anything like that. It's just children can be like that, and they can be quite nasty when they sink their teeth into something and decide that they're going to bully over it. But I think it just depends on the kids at any individual school, and maybe the way they were brought up as well. It only takes, I think, one or two who are a bit more influential on the playground for it to become more of a problem.
In primary school, it was funny for me. The bullying I had a couple of bullies at the very end of primary school. Like up until year 6, it was fine. Suddenly in year 6, year 7, year 8, they suddenly started perking up. I don't know if that was because that's when I started playing cricket, which we'll get onto later.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, I was quite talented at it. Not to blow my own horn or anything, but I don't know if it was like saying that, I'm disabled and I can still do this, and, I'm better than they are, and they're fully abled in, you never know what they're thinking.
Yeah, you don't know. And I mean, for me, I say being pulled out of lessons to go and do things, maybe they saw that was a bit of special treatment. There's one other thing I just want to go back to in terms of physio, which
yeah, sure.
I think it's worth mentioning is, while I had physio through, and it was through the NHS, and the physios to come to my school and help me, and I go into hospitals at physio. My parents did a great job on that as well. It didn't stop when the physio wasn't there. One of the things I remember from a very young age was every Sunday, me and my dad would walk up a hill nearby to a tower. And that started off with I couldn't walk up the tower. My dad would get part way, if my dad would carry me the rest of the way. And then as I got older, then I could walk it. Thankfully, I could walk it before I got too heavy for it. But they took what was really essential physiotherapy at that point for me and turned it into a family activity. And they made it into something positive and something to look forward to on a weekend.
I think that's a key thing. If you find it, I mean, anything can technically be physio. Any physical activity can be physio at the end of the day. But it's the key part is making it fun. You don't want to be doing, especially when you're a child in primary school, you don't want to be doing, stretches and little exercises on a mat. I mean, that's not fun for a child. Walking up a hill, exploring the world, that is fun for a child. So I think, yeah, it is. It's how you can bring physio in other activities. I mean, like you said, you did half, and then you can, when you stopped, your parents took you the other half, which is the key part, because they're showing you where you can be or what you can get there. Just it takes time.
Yeah, and he also just had a thing. And personally for me, my dad worked a lot, so it was some time I spent with him, and to have that as something to look forward to was our day together, our morning together every Sunday was something that for me meant a lot. And just to have that, and it also be physio, and that meant a lot to me. And it really helped. You can see progress every week. You make it a little bit further up the hill before you need help. And then getting to the top was a massive achievement for me as a child.
Using that example, I think that's a good point to start, where we can see that physio stops focusing on physio and we start moving towards just general sport. The importance of sport, I mean, we can talk about the importance. Sport is important generally, but for people with disabilities and, with your disability, how good is sport? I mean, that's a very heavy question, I know. I mean, it's a very open question too, but you know, if you find a sport that you like, I mean, this is the problem, I think. If you find a sport that you like, it's much easier. But if you're not necessarily a sporty person, how would you summarize how good sport is?
Well, I'll sort of preface that saying, if you're not a sporty person, I was, and I came from a very sport-driven family. And my dad was a huge sports fan and a footballer in his younger days. And he really wanted me to focus on sport because of the social life it gave him. You know, he still, to this day, goes once a year and meets up with his old footballing buddies. And they go for a few drinks together. And even that, I had an interest in sport. You know, at the age of 4, there was the World Cup 1994 in the United States. And apparently I was glued to the TV at the age of 4 because I just loved football at that age. So I'm definitely coming from a place where I liked sport, but my parents also really drove that. You know, I was enrolled in summer classes for cricket, swimming, football, rugby, just to name a few.
Everything, basically.
That helped the strength in my legs. I didn't have that strength. And despite the fact that I was slower than the other children or didn't have the strength needed, I was always the kid who would get on with it, who would always, you know, just keep working through it and had some real determination, really. And that really helped build up my leg strength. But as you well know, I settled on cricket probably from about the age of 12. And I think the reason I chose cricket, and I don't know what your reasons were for this, but there are some physical aspects to cricket. For example, you know, if you're a pace bowler and you're running in to bowl quickly, there's quite a lot of physical strain. But what I thought is you can pick your role a little bit and you can
refine it.
And you can define your role in a team, but also you can almost make up for some physical aspects in cricket with skill. So for me, I started off as a leg spin bowler because I could take 2 strides and bowl. And I batted at 11, and I bowled leg spin, and it was only when I got physically stronger that I then transitioned to things that I was probably just better at, which was, as you all know, because when I played with you as a batsman and eventually as a wicketkeeper, that's the reason I really got involved with cricket. It was there was a route in for me that wasn't quite as physically demanding to start with. It probably helped at the time that the impression of spin bowlers was that they weren't very good in the field anyway. So he just made me one of another spin bowler.
It's funny that you said 12 because I think for some reason, yeah, it's around that time. I think I started playing cricket 10-ish, but it's around that 10, 12 time that you get into cricket. And I remember why I got into it so quickly. It was because, one, you only needed one hand for it. Even though you see everyone using 2 bowling bats, it's all 2 hands. One of my specialities, I find ways of doing everything with one hand. You know, bowling, batting, like everything in day-to-day life. The first thing at school, the first thing we were doing was, you know, do you remember, I'm not sure if you did this, but windmill bowling. Or seesaw bowling, some people call it. Basically just, you teach bowling stage 1. No one's ever played cricket, ever. How to chuck the ball with a straight arm, basically. And I mean, I thought, well, this is easy. I can do this with one hand because I don't need the left side to do anything. Just chuck the ball.
And it works.
And it works. And it was an easy way in for me.
I think cricket's just one of those sports that does give you a little bit more leeway on that. I'm not trying to say that other sports are, because I never went far enough down the route of other sports to really ever find out. But it just seems like one of those sports, I say, you can play it you can play it completely one-handed. And some of the things I've seen when we both played for Surrey Disability.
Well, I've seen some crazy things.
I mean, I've forgotten his name, but there was the guy who played for Essex who used to be a pace bowler who ran in on crutches. And then fell to the ground when he bowled, which was miraculous. But he was their opening bowler for a while and just a very good player, which is just remarkable some people do.
I think cricket is a very adaptable sport. The only thing is you have to keep your arms straight. If you can keep one arm straight when you bowl through, that's all you need. And then it's practice.
Yeah, I think I think it's worth mentioning. You're saying obviously you played essentially one-handed, but you're aiming for bowling usually comes from your other hand. So there are things that are still challenging, most certainly. They're not insurmountable problems.
I think it's also at the beginning, if you have a good coach and they show you how well you can do and how, good you can be, then that's a very crucial part. Like I started playing club cricket when I was 10. I'm still at the same club, still with the same coach. So I've had the same coach for, oh God, almost 20 years, which and he showed me, my coach was very interesting because he doesn't act like, it's very important this for not just cricket, but I think for everything. They don't act like you have a disability.
Yeah, I think a good coach gives you support when you need it, but they don't draw attention to the disability unless there's a need.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's kind of, not just within sport, but something that I think is maybe a little trickier from a point of view of some disability is when you need help and someone offers help and that's good versus I know I used to get a bit snippy with some people if they offer help and I didn't need it, which is the wrong attitude from me. But I don't know if you've ever had that scenario where someone comes and offers you help and you don't need any and it's a bit, well, why are you doing this? And they only mean to help, I suppose, but it just sometimes that irks me a little bit.
Yes, it can be infuriating because I think from our point of view, it's like, yes, we're not that disabled. We can do it ourselves. But then I think what the hard bit is when you do need help and they don't realize you need help. I think that's the one that's because they somehow realize when you don't need help, but when you do need help, they don't realize. For me, my friends have sort of taken a little tangent here, but like social situations, I can't use my left arm. So if I'm like holding a drink and I want to say hello to someone, it's the most infuriating thing possible. But luckily, my friends just know we have a system now. I don't even think that they realize that we have a system. But, they will literally subconsciously take my drink. I shake their hand and give me back my drink. And if I'm alone, there's a table by the side. Yeah, I think in those situations, friends are very important because, they will know when you're okay to do whatever you need to do and when you need help. But it's finding those people, I think, originally. Because in primary school, secondary school, it's harder because, I'm not going to say they don't care, but they're not.
I think they also lack quite socially. I think when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you grow a lot socially anyway. Like you become a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
I think maybe when people are younger than that, this is odd and I don't really know how to deal with it and not having maybe as much of the social skill set to know what to do. Whereas you kind of work it out a bit more when you're a little bit older.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah,
I'm sure I can circle around to the importance of sport again. We got.
Well, we'll circle back round to we got off a tangent for social mobility and so bringing it back to sport because I assume you're playing for a club at that time.
I was only playing the club. I got involved with disability cricket when I was at university, and only in my final year. So it was something that was raised at the time, but wrongly, I think. I didn't want to be involved in disability cricket. We can get into the reasons for that maybe in a little bit. But yes, I was only playing at club level, and I was playing for, playing the under-13s local village team.
Yeah, because I was playing for my club and for my school. Now, my experiences between club and school are completely different. Like at the school, I felt like I was not to be like un-PC or anything, but a diversity hire. At club, I was top two. And then at school, I was, batting 12 and bowling last bowler. And I'm thinking.
Yeah. Also, I guess a bit why I'm here. I ended up playing for my school, but we only had a cricket program for the last 2 years. So, and that was in sixth form. So I was playing when I was like 17, 18. And I don't know if I saw them just people who were better in the team, but I'd be brought in to play games and I'd bat 11 and not get a ball. And I thought, well, what am I doing here? I feel like I'm wasting my time. And, I remember even in one game, the coach turning to the captain and being like, give him a bowl. And the captain went, nah. It's like, oh, I feel good enough.
I mean, I had this. That was basically my experience. It's the diversity hire, I call it. But yeah, I mean, the problem is they didn't let you show how good you can be.
No.
That was the problem.
The other advantage I had at school a little bit was there were some people who played for my club who also played for the school, which got me a little bit more sort of leeway in what was happening. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, these kind of things do happen. I even had issues at club level where they asked me to stop coming to senior training.
You see, I went straight to a disability, like fully disability cricket club, so I never had that issue. I'll just tell you a funny story. So when I was playing, I was in a match at school. I was bowling last as usual. It ends up, I get 2 of them out straight away. And they look at you, they look at you like so surprised. And I'm just like, I do this every week for my club. I know how to bowl. If you aim at the wicket long enough, batsman's gonna make an error. That's my strategy normally. And the batsman's made errors. It's not that I have suddenly become amazing. It's just I'm tenacious. But yeah, I mean, it didn't change anything, unfortunately. So I sort of stopped trying at school and just focused on my club because...
I mean, I was lucky. I mean, a couple of things. I mean, sport in general made sort of everyday life easier because of my leg strength grew. And that didn't just make me a better player, but it also meant I didn't get as tired during the days and things like that. So I got better as a player, but it's when I went to university, I ended up playing for a village team. And I think the first game they brought me in, I said, we'll back you at 8 and we'll give you a bowl.
To try you out, basically.
But they were, I think the first game I got 7 overs. And then from there, we went back and forth. And after a year or so, he was one of those, well, actually, you're a better batsman than you are a bowler. And within 2 years, I was opening the batting. And, I think it's about the people you're around. I think...
that's a big part, I think, yeah.
My local club growing up were very much of the opinion of, we'll give this kid a try, but he'll never play for a senior team. Like, the junior levels are fine. We'll never give him a senior game. But I'll go to another club and, I ended up being vice captain and opening the batting for them within a couple of years and, pulling my weight in the team.
I think that's the important. It's the environment. So the correct environment and you're going to succeed without disabilities. This is just general life advice, I think. With the right environment, the ability to succeed is so much better. Otherwise, you're going against the wrong flow of the river, for example. In that case, it is interesting, the dynamics of how things work, especially how things work at school versus club. It's a big difference. The reason I ended up in Surrey was I used to drive, and because I live in London, I drove an hour and a half. I'd still drive an hour and a half to my club cricket because I know, I like the club. That's why I drive an hour and a half nowadays. But then even when I was playing at Surrey, I was in secondary school. I wasn't playing any of the school games. I think Danny even wrote a letter to my school.
Well, yeah, Danny was our coach, and I think he looked out for everyone on the team, didn't he? Because I know Roger came and played for the same club that I did.
Yeah.
Anyone who wasn't getting regular game time at a club, he would help them find new clubs. He would help speak to people. So they were playing some football cricket, even if they couldn't play for their schools or whatever, that was fine. But club cricket, he would do whatever he could to try and help out. Yeah.
Danny was a very great motivator, I think. And that's kind of been lost. I haven't played properly for Surrey for not at all this year, but I played a little bit last year. And that's gone. It's very much, we need to be the best team. If you're not up to scratch, you're not playing.
I think that misses out some of the point of disability cricket, though. I think, you want to be competitive. You don't want it just to be go and have fun, but there's no winners. You want that competition. But by the same token, I'll always remember, the smiles on people's faces, particularly some of the guys with more of the learning disability side, and the way Danny was with them, and getting to see how much it meant to them, and to see how much people grew, not just as cricketers, but as people under those circumstances. I think that was a huge part of that, and it's one of the reasons I loved playing disability cricket.
In our case, cricket builds personality, positivity, all these things. But in sport in general, I mean, whatever sport, if you have the right environment, you're going to get these advantages, I think. It's a good continuation from physio because, especially cricket, yes, it's not too, I mean, people say it's not too fitness intensive, but then people forget you're on that field for 8 hours.
You can make it as physically demanding as you want to an extent. I mean, if you want to be the quickest person on the field, you need to be running drills and doing all that in your spare time as well. So I think you make it as physical as you want to make it. And yes, you can be the stereotypical view of village cricketer who rolls out of bed 10 minutes before the game, shows up, doesn't warm up and plays. Does exist, but they're not going to be the best person on the team.
Exactly.
You can put a lot of effort in now. I think, even we see it from a, international cricket and more mainstream cricket. You see how the game's evolved. It's gone from having, players that were a bit out of shape but had a bit of skill to these guys are athletes, real athletes.
Yeah, proper athletes.
I mean, I remember seeing people who were very much out of shape playing for certain teams, international level. That's all gone.
I mean, you can't keep up. That's the problem with if you have, there was a phase I remember when there was like half of the team was, fit as a fiddle, and the other half weren't. And then there's that divide slowly grew of the performance wise. I mean, there was too much of a discrepancy, but that leads me on really to how sport creates a positive mindset. So, I mean, we've been talking about, how sport's great especially for us, but sport in general, how does it impact your mindset in general life?
I think there's a few things here. One, exercise is known to be a mood lifter. It boosts mental health all the time anyway. So that's a fairly obvious thing. Good diet and exercise always helps mental health regardless. But also, if you are getting stronger, it adds confidence. And confidence is such a huge factor. For me, it's not a case of sport that really affected my mental health as much. It did, but there were other things that came into it. I think for me, I struggled with mental health as a child. As I said, I was bullied quite badly at primary school. I suffered with some depression. But all I ever wanted as a child was to be normal. And that for me was such a horrible mindset to have. And all I saw was I was different and I wanted to be normal. It got better as I got older, but it didn't go away really until I finished university and I met my now wife, Kajal. And she really helped me understand that my disability is part of who I am. I wouldn't be the person I was without my disability. And some of the things that are part of my personality, which I'd like to include determination, resilience, and drive as examples, really have made me who I am. And it's difficult to really accept and embrace your disability when you're younger. Since I've done that and I've accepted that it's given me these positives, it's massively helped my confidence. And it's helped in my life in general. I'd like to think that I've lived a fairly successful life thus far. I've lived in various places around the world. I've done a PhD abroad. And some of these things might have been daunting or challenging for people, but I think when you've been through other things in your life, that becomes easier. And I'm grateful that I've got those personality traits because of my disability. And I think, accepting the disability, embracing what it's given me, has made such a huge difference to my mental health over the years. I just wish I'd done that earlier. Again, it's really to boost the confidence and then overall mental health.
It's crazy that how confidence can have such a big impact. Like,
Huge.
sport gives you confidence. Confidence helps you in, you know, every aspect of life. And if you have that right amount, because I remember I used to be, I mean, I'm not sure if you noticed, especially during the first years at Surrey, I was really shy.
I remember.
I mean, now I'm hosting a podcast. I mean, look at me. The shyness has gone. But yeah, I mean, it's just that transformation of, you know, bringing in the confidence that you need to be able to do stuff. But I mean, like you said, I always ask myself the question, if I didn't have these disabilities, would I be the same person? No one knows. I mean, I have a theoretical answer to myself is, I think that my personality wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, your personality is driven by life experiences. And, you know, I think having a disability means you have different life experiences. You know, some of them you could look at as being potentially more negative, but then they give you tools to help deal with that, and vice versa. So I think I would most certainly be a different person if I hadn't had a disability. And I'm grateful for the things that have come out of the disability, that I see the positive things that have come out of that.
For me, is you know, you're always looking at situations, seeing how to adapt to a situation. You might not need to, but you're always thinking it from that different angle, and you know, you're always trying to solve problems. So I think it's that sort of helps open your mind, and you're open to many ideas. You know, any out of the box thinking is you're gonna think of it to try and solve something if you can't do it. So in that instance, it's perfect. I mean, I always think it's quite funny. I always think, yeah, I might not have had the same personality, but I would have been a monster at cricket.
Well, I go the other way. I always look at it and go, well, if I hadn't had a disability, would I have had the same opportunities at cricket? And I might have ended up
That's a good question,
better player, but I've played a county ground twice. I'll brag a little. I've scored a 50 at the Oval, which I always like to try and drop in if I can. But I wouldn't have had the chance that I wouldn't have had those opportunities if I didn't have a disability. And yeah, I might be a slightly better player, but then I might have just been playing for the same teams and been slightly better. There's no guarantee that translates into anything more than that.
I mean, would you be playing for the Surrey number ones? We don't know. We can always dream. But I mean, yeah, you mentioned the Oval. Yeah, we've played at Oval, Lords. Not many people can say that they've batted, you know, scored 50 in the grounds. But I mean, I bottled my Oval play. It was very sad, but I still played.
Well, just to say that you've played all that ground, I think there's not that many people who get that opportunity, and it's
yeah, I know. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was an amazing experience. They got my name wrong on the ball, which was kind of annoying.
I was just going to say that thing. I remember I was walking out to bat and I looked at the scoreboard and my name was on it. And I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't expect the names to come up, but they got my name wrong. But you know, it's still one for the history books, I suppose. I mean, adapting in different scenarios. We talked a little bit about that, sort of, you know, how it affects your personality. I mean, for anyone with your condition, would you give anyone any tips and tricks to sort of help with day-to-day life, let's say, or in certain scenarios?
It's difficult because of the severity of the symptoms from transverse myelitis vary quite drastically. I actually know somebody else who had transverse myelitis as an adult, and they really have no noticeable, you know, their disability is basically invisible, and, you know, fit as fiddle, no problems that you can see. And then other people, it can bring almost full paralysis. So it's really hard for me to talk about any physical tips or tricks because of each person who's got transverse myelitis will have their own individual challenges. And I just hope that some of the experiences that I've given here will help a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, sport is always going to help, I think, and physio, positive mindset is a key one, I think.
Well, that's the thing I think is worth mentioning is, you know, your disability is part of you, but you aren't your disability. you can do anything that you want and that anything is possible. I mean, I was told I would never walk again. Don't ever give up on dreams and achievements that you want, because there are more that are achievable than you might think. And the big thing is when you can, I get it's hard, particularly when you're younger, but accept and embrace the disability. Accept that it's there. Don't, this whole thing of that I did, which was I just want to be normal, was a really bad mindset. And that caused me, struggle with mental health.
I think everyone is. I mean, luckily, I had my brother who basically treated me like I didn't have a disability at all. But inside, you still ask yourself, especially when you're younger, especially during teenage years. I think those hormonal years, you're like, I wish I wish I was normal, basically. I mean, you shouldn't have that mindset, but it's always going to cross your mind. The point, I think, my point is, okay, you're going to have that thought at some point, but focus on stuff that you can control.
Yeah, exactly. You can't control that, and you are still you, and you are in control of whatever you want to be, and use that. Just be I think the quicker I think it's different for different people. If you fixate on trying to be normal, I think that's different to that odd thought popping into your head. I think the odd thought popping into your head is a bit more manageable and it'll have less impact. If you can fixate on this though, and assume you can get to a place where you can accept and embrace what the disability has given you that's positive, the more confident and happy you'll become because of that. And it's
I agree.
Easy thing to do, because it took me 25 years, it took me about 20 years of my life before I started doing this.
Yeah, I mean, we say it's easy to do, but yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, it's funny, when a child, I was very open, but then when I became more aware of my disability, I became very shy. And that took up 20 years of my life. I was shy for about 20 years of my life. So we say it's easy, but it's not easy, but it is, you can overcome it. I think we've been talking from, that good physio means, and good sport gives you a positive mindset. But I think also it goes the other way. Positive mindset can get you into sport and physio. So it's kind of a two-way street, or a circle maybe. But, as long as you as long as you get onto one of those, then you'll eventually get all three.
I agree. I agree. I don't think any of the steps you take are necessarily easy. I think bringing yourself, particularly if you've got, I'm speaking more from a physical disability point of view here, because I can't speak for learning disability, but getting into sport could be really challenging for some people because of insecurity and things like that.
Oh yeah.
I would suggest, not that it's easy, but it's probably easier than you think. I think you can build walls around, I can't do that.
Yeah, you make excuses to yourself to protect yourself, and then you turn up that one day, and then it's just like, oh, everyone's so welcoming, and I can actually do this. I like this. I mean, I remember, so my cricket club, when I joined, was 20 people. Then we went through a drought of, basically, there were some times when it was just me and Fraser at the club.
Wow.
It was good for me because, one-on-one coaching and all that. But the coaches weren't, I have to pick up my coaches because they were volunteers. Me and Fraser basically kept the disability club open for 5 years, 5 to 10 years of its existence. But now that I've just come out of playing Surrey, and let's be honest, I'm growing out of a sort of children's disability club right now. I only go there because to help now, and a little bit of coaching after. But now I see it's back. We've got a whole new cohort of people with all matter range of disabilities. You've got people, there's someone there with no legs. It's amazing, the technology. They strap something onto his legs. So he basically runs on his knees.
Oh, wow.
When he's bowling. So, I mean, the technology has advanced tremendously. I mean, I'll leave you with one final question. And that is, what are you looking forward to in the future, sport-wise, life-wise?
I don't have as much time for sport as I used to. Things get harder when you do stop doing the sport because of you lose some of that. But unfortunately, as you get older, priorities change a little bit. So
Work.
Yeah,
no work.
but no, I really enjoy my job. My wife and I last year we moved to the countryside, so we're setting up a new life here, and we want to start a family and start these new adventures together. So really looking forward to life in general, and looking forward to what's to come. There's a lot of exciting things I hope in the future for us. From a more sport point of view, I think I'd like to get back involved with some outreach work, helping people with disabilities, maybe through cricket. I've tried reaching out to a few people to offer some help, and unfortunately I've not really heard anything back, which is a bit of a shame. But if I can do something just to try and help out somewhere, I'd like to do that again. I feel like I got a huge amount out of the disability cricket system, and it'd be nice to put something back here if someone lets me.
To give back. Yeah, no, that's a good outlook on life. Yeah, you seem to, there's a whole new adventure for you just about to start, it seems. So that's awesome. Thank you, Matthew, for coming on the podcast today. It was great fun talking about transverse myelitis and the help that sport has both mentally and physically, especially cricket. If you'd like to know more or come onto the podcast, please look at the show notes in the description to get in contact with me. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you on the next episode of the Disability Podcast.